All right, everyone, settle in. Tonight, we're diving into the brutally hot, soot-covered life of a man who quite literally forged the medieval world, the blacksmith. You've probably seen them in movies, hammering glowing iron in slow motion with sparks flying majestically through the air. But trust me, being a real medieval blacksmith was nothing like a dramatic training montage. It was dirty, exhausting, blister-inducing work, and in most cases it absolutely sucked. So, before you get comfortable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely appreciate what I'm creating here. And I'd love to know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always genuinely fascinating to see our audience connecting from all corners of the globe. Now go ahead and dim those lights, perhaps switch on a fan for that gentle background hum, and let's smoothly transition into tonight's journey together. You were born into the noble, soot-covered lineage of medieval blacksmiths. No crowns, no land, no fancy titles, just the family forge, anvil-shaped blisters, and the indelible scent of roasted iron baked into your baby blanket. From the moment you can walk without stumbling into the fire pit, you're expected to help. By age 6, you're officially your father's apprentice, which is a polite medieval way of saying tiny, unpaid assistant with zero rights and permanent soot streaks on your face. Your toys are tongs. Your playground is a dirt floor adjacent to a furnace hot enough to singe your eyebrows. While other village kids are chasing chickens and skipping stones, you're learning how not to perish next to molten metal. Fun games include guess how hot this is with your hand, hold the hammer until your arms fall off, and try not to cry when you mess up the nail again. Your father, the blacksmith, is a terrifying, muscular man whose entire vocabulary consists of sighs, grunts, and the phrase, "hit it harder." He possesses hands like gnarled tree bark and a permanent scowl etched by decades of smoke exposure and relentless tax collectors. He teaches you everything: how to shape iron, how to fuel the fire, how to keep your mouth shut when a knight insults your work. You don't ask questions. You simply observe, absorb, and obey, primarily because asking questions usually results in a flying horseshoe and a week of silent treatment. Holidays? A pleasant thought, but non-existent for you. The forge never rests, and neither do you. Someone always needs something sharpened, repaired, or reforged. You quickly learn that free time is merely the interval between one demanding job and the next. And while you're technically learning a trade, what you're truly acquiring is pain tolerance, heat resistance, and the ability to fall asleep standing up. By the time you reach 10, you already smell distinctly of iron, swear like a seasoned miner, and possess arms strong enough to carry water buckets that weigh more than your dog, assuming the dog didn't flee from the incessant noise 2 years prior. This is your life now. Welcome to the family business. Hope you enjoy sweat, smoke, and a lifetime of chronic back pain. If you thought you'd enjoy a few years of carefree playtime before the hammer truly came down, think again. Childhood in the medieval blacksmith's world is more of a theoretical concept than an actual phase. The moment you can lift a bucket without toppling over, you're immediately pressed into service. Forget games, toys, or any notion of fun. Your playroom is a smoke-stained shed filled with sharp objects and open flames. Your jungle gym consists of a rack of tongs positioned perilously close to a pit of glowing coal. One wrong step and you're receiving an unscheduled lesson in how long your skin can sizzle before your father finally notices. Your official job title might be apprentice, but its true meaning is perform every task no one else desires to do and still endure constant reprimands. You diligently stoke the fire, pump the bellows, sweep the floor, meticulously clean the tools, restack the coal, and attempt not to get impaled by a falling horseshoe, all of this before breakfast. You receive payment in food, stern nods, and the occasional grunt of mild approval, which, in blacksmith language, signifies, "You didn't completely ruin that today." Meanwhile, the village children you once knew are out in the fields, perhaps casually throwing sticks or learning how to milk goats. You envy them. Even if they do smell vaguely of cheese and manure, they might grow up to be farmers or shepherds. Humble professions, certainly, but ones that involve fewer glowing weapons and unexpected burns. You, on the other hand, are learning to meticulously forge nails by hand. Nails. Thousands of them. Bent, twisted, and repeatedly reheated until they're straight enough to hold together some lord's chicken coop. If you're fortunate, your father permits you to wield a hammer on your own immediately after pointing out every single error you're making. And don't even think about uttering, "I'm tired." That phrase is explicitly forbidden in the forge. Fatigue is a weakness. Burnout is reserved for candles. You continue swinging, continue sweating, continue smiling, or at least refrain from crying where anyone can witness it. Because in the eyes of your master, who is also your father, you are no longer a child. You are a blacksmith in training, and the rigorous training never truly ends. The forge isn't just your workplace, it's your entire existence. It completely dominates your senses, reshapes your muscles, and profoundly rewires your brain. By the time you reach your teens, it doesn't just feel like a physical location, it feels like a living creature, a hot, smoky, temperamental beast that you must diligently feed, control, and fear. You know it sounds intimately. The bellows wheezing, the hot iron hissing as it's quenched in water, the sharp, rhythmic clang of hammer on metal echoing like a distant war drum. There's an undeniable rhythm to it, akin to some brutal medieval symphony, and your body moves in perfect synchronicity with it, whether you're fully awake or half asleep. You eventually stop noticing the intense heat. This isn't because it becomes easier, it's because you've simply resigned yourself to its presence, much like gravity or taxes. You instinctively know which stones become too hot to sit on, which coals burn most efficiently, and which sections of the dirt floor are subtly trying to assault your feet. Your skin darkens permanently from pervasive smoke, not from sun exposure. Clothes, the same soot-stained tunic and leather apron you wear every single day, smell like a peculiar blend of scorched wool, grease, and quiet desperation. You don't own many possessions, but you undeniably possess this forge. Not officially, of course. Your father technically still owns it, but in practical terms, it completely owns you. You begin to forget what silence sounds like. The hiss, the clang, the crackle, it's a constant symphony. When the forge does fall quiet, it's almost unsettling. You find yourself twitching, as if you're missing a beat in a song you've been forced to memorize since early childhood. Your friends, assuming you've managed to retain any, rarely see you. "He's probably at the forge" becomes your default status. You're not a blacksmith, you are the forge, a two-legged extension of raw fire and unyielding steel. And, strangely, a part of you begins to cherish it. Not the painful burns, not the throbbing blisters, but the profound satisfaction when the shape finally emerges correctly, when the horseshoe fits perfectly, when the newly forged blade gleams with precision, when the stubborn metal bends precisely to your will. For a fleeting moment, you're not just a child covered in soot. You're a true creator, a skilled crafter, an essential gear within the intricate medieval machine. Then the moment passes, the next order arrives, and the fire roars to life once more. Time to return to work. By the time your friends are just beginning to experience their teenage growth spurts, your limbs already feel as though they've endured a prolonged siege. While they're getting taller and stronger, you're becoming stooped, scarred, and perpetually stiff. Your arms are undeniably thick, but not in a heroic, knight-lifting a shining sword manner. Rather, they're more akin to a teenager who has been repeatedly assaulted by anvils. Your back is a profound tragedy, hunched from tirelessly hauling metal and bending over the forge for hours each day. Your knees creak audibly every time you crouch. Your shoulders pop with a disconcerting sound every time you lift a hammer, which occurs every few seconds, making it a constant part of your personal soundtrack. And your hands, let's truly examine your hands. You once possessed fingers. Now you have iron-tipped claws. They are blistered, cracked, and stained with soot so deeply ingrained that even the mighty Nile couldn't wash it away. Cuts are a common occurrence, burns are a daily reality, and half of your fingernails are permanently blackened or entirely missing. You once crushed your thumb so severely it turned black for 2 weeks. You didn't cease working, you simply switched hands and grunted more than usual. Cuts are constant. Sometimes it's a chipped edge, sometimes a file bites you, sometimes the unyielding iron fights back. Every week, something on your hands leaks blood. You wrap it in a scrap of cloth, mutter a curse under your breath, and continue working. Worse still are the burns. Some are mild, serving as minor reminders that molten iron offers no forgiveness. Others are more severe, the kind that sizzle, bubble, and leave indelible scars that narrate their own painful stories. You've branded yourself more frequently than a cattle farmer, and at this point you're not even angered by it. You've simply grown accustomed to it. Your grip strength is the sole physical attribute that has genuinely improved. You can effortlessly crush walnuts as if they owe you money. But dexterity? That has long since vanished. You frequently drop objects. Your fingers tremble when exposed to cold. You're merely 30, yet you possess the hands of a 70-year-old knight who tragically lost 3 wars and now gambles at tavern dice for a bowl of soup. But despite all of this, these hands are what ultimately sustain your life. They meticulously shape swords, dutifully fix hinges, and firmly grasp the hammer that upholds your hard-earned reputation. They constantly ache, but they diligently work. Because in this life, it matters little how broken your body feels, as long as you can still swing that hammer. And the most disheartening part, you're only just beginning. In most professions, smoke is an unfortunate problem. In your line of work, it's a constant coworker, and a particularly rude one at that. The forge isn't just hot, it's a choking chamber, and every breath you take comes seasoned with the distinct aroma of coal dust, scorched metal, ash, and profound regret. If you can clearly see more than 6 feet in front of you, congratulations. It likely means someone forgot to ignite the fire. There's no proper chimney, just a crude hole in the roof that allows more smoke to billow into the forge than it permits to escape. You consider opening a window? There is no window. Just soot-blackened walls, the persistent sound of your father's coughing, and the occasional gust of wind that manages to blow everything directly into your eyes anyway. Your lungs, let's just say they've entered a long-term, undeniably toxic relationship with smoke. Initially it burns, then it irritates, then one day it simply becomes a normal, accepted part of your existence. Persistent coughing fits become part of the daily rhythm. Black mucus? Not ideal, certainly, but at least it's consistent. You've reached a point where clean air feels oddly suspicious. Even your voice undergoes a transformation. You begin to sound like a 60-year-old goat farmer who subsists on boiling tar. Words emerge scratchier, breaths are shorter, and your throat always feels as though it's hosting a perpetual dust storm. But you relentlessly continue working because you have no other choice. And it's not solely the smoke emanating from the fire. There's also fine metal dust from grinding, acrid oil fumes from quenching, and occasionally the stench of burnt leather, charred wood, or whatever unfortunate material inadvertently fell into the glowing coals. You've likely inhaled 3 different types of poison before noon. Protective gear? Please. A simple rag tied crudely around your face is the best you can manage, and even that becomes sweaty, disgustingly saturated, and somehow smells worse than the smoke itself. You remove it, and suddenly it's a little harder to breathe, but at least you're not gagging on your own sweat. Long-term health damage? Absolutely. Asthma, black lung, and early demise, these are all integral parts of the career package. But you're not preoccupied with long-term consequences. You're solely focused on finishing that gate hinge before your father notices how crooked it has become. In the world of a medieval blacksmith, air is just another burden. You don't breathe to merely survive. You breathe to perpetually keep hammering. By now, you've developed an intimate relationship with your tools, a bond primarily forged through pain, necessity, and mutual disrespect. Your hammer? It's essentially an extension of your arm. You've named it, you've cursed it, you've swung it so many countless times that your shoulder now clicks audibly when you raise it, resembling a haunted maraca. But without it, you're merely a sweaty individual standing in a smoke-filled hut. The hammer transforms you into a blacksmith, and it also consistently causes you to bleed. Then there are your tongs, clumsy, perpetually hot, and always managing to pinch you at the exact wrong moment. You've burned your fingertips more times than you've successfully picked up anything. The heated iron slips, your grip fails, you instinctively yell, and your father typically instructs you to grip it like you mean it. You seriously contemplate throwing them into the roaring fire just to teach them a lesson. Your chisel? It was once sharp. Now it's mostly a vague suggestion of a blade, having been extensively used to shape, split, scrape, and occasionally pry open stubborn stuck doors when your neighbor's lock breaks. Files, awls, punch tools, rivet sets. Your entire tool bench resembles a medieval torture rack, and frankly, it somewhat functions as one. You've been jabbed, crushed, pinched, sliced, and even impaled by virtually every item you possess. Your fingers now possess their own memory. They instinctively flinch at the mere sight of a new tool. Your apron? It's intended to provide protection, and it does so to a degree if by protect you mean effectively catch hot metal shards and hold them firmly against your body like a smoldering, uncomfortable hug. It's more scorched than stitched, and the worn leather stiffens like a corpse every winter. And yet, despite all of this, you meticulously care for these tools as if they were cherished family members. You sharpen them, oil them, and meticulously line them up each night. Because if one of them breaks, your work ceases. You cannot work, you cannot earn, you cannot eat. No tool, no income. So yes, your tools are your very livelihood. But do not be deceived. They have also unequivocally declared war on your fingers, your spine, and your sanity. Every single day they subtly whisper, "We help you survive, but we will also slowly destroy you." And you, with a sigh, respond, "Yeah, that sounds about right. Now pass the hammer." You don't wear a crown, wield a shining sword, or lead armies, but without you, the entire village would cease to function by Tuesday. You are the blacksmith, and everyone needs you, constantly, for absolutely everything. You are the medieval equivalent of customer service, tech support, and roadside assistance, all rolled into one soot-covered figure who consistently smells of smoke and quiet desperation. The knight requires a new sword, you craft it. The farmer breaks a plow, you meticulously fix it. Amongst bell cracks, a baker's oven door jams, a shepherd's gate latch refuses to close. Guess who receives the urgent call? That's right, you, every single time. And they all behave as if you've been idly waiting for their specific problem. They arrive unannounced, interrupting your work mid-swing, covered in mud and an air of entitlement. "I know you're busy," they begin, "but could you just, that insidious phrase that relentlessly haunts you. But here's the truly exasperating part. You are almost never explicitly thanked. They simply assume it's your inherent duty that you were born to serve. If their hoe functions correctly, their door securely closes, or their shield withstands a blow, they merely nod curtly and walk away, as if you were the fortunate one, as if you should feel honored to repair their rusty bucket at sunset for half a loaf of stale bread. Payment is often wildly inconsistent. Sometimes in coin, sometimes in goods, and sometimes in vague promises they conveniently forget by the next market day. One memorable instance involved a man paying you with a dead chicken. "Good for soup," he declared. It most certainly was not. You're also the default fixer for problems that are unequivocally not your responsibility. Bent hinges from someone foolishly sitting on a gate, you fix it. A broken dagger resulting from a drunken brawl, you fix it. A mysterious piece of iron that no one can identify but absolutely must be repaired? Yep, still falls to you. Yet when the village bestows praise upon anyone, it's invariably the knight, the priest, or the miller with the unusually fat goat. You're merely background noise, a necessary utility, a reliable tool, not a distinct person. But here's the crucial secret you possess. They would not last a single week without your tireless work. Their fields would grind to a halt. Their homes would inevitably fall apart. Their horses would limp in agony. And while they may never compose songs about your hammer, their entire world is quietly and dependably held together by your calloused hands. You'd naturally think peace would be excellent news. No raiders, no bandits, no screaming noblemen demanding a new sword by sundown. But for you, the blacksmith, peace is disastrous for business. Because while you certainly work on plows and hinges, what truly pays the bills is war. When conflict erupts, everyone desperately needs you. Weapons, armor, arrowheads by the hundreds. Even horseshoes wear down more rapidly under the immense stress of panicked cavalry charges. You are inundated with work. The forge burns brighter, and the coins flow steadily inward. You may be utterly exhausted, but your belly is full, and your lingering debt to the alehouse is momentarily forgotten. But then the war concludes. The local lord declares a truce, the knights cease their marching, and suddenly your orders vanish. No more swords, no more helmets, Just a farmer inquiring if you can sharpen a sickle and perhaps accept 3 meager onions as payment. And certainly you can craft household goods, cauldrons, door handles, cooking spits, but there's precious little profit in it. Everyone expects you to work with the skill of a wizard, but they only wish to compensate you like a stable boy. You are forced to become a shrewd negotiator, a humble beggar, and a cunning merchant all at once, haggling for decent wages as if your entire forge were merely a stall at the market. And don't even think about raising your prices. People will glare at you as if you've just cursed their cow. But you're just hammering metal, they'll casually remark, as if molten iron effortlessly bends itself into shape while serenading church hymns. You begin to miss the chaos. Not the bloodshed, not the burning villages, but the consistent flow of orders. The very purpose. The exhilarating rush when knights lined up outside your forge with dented shields and ready coin purses. You genuinely mattered. Now you're crafting keys for locked doors no one bothers to lock, patching pots that should have been discarded long ago, and repairing tools so ancient they belong in a museum, not a field. Peace, for everyone else, signifies safety and much-needed rest. For you, it translates to acute economic anxiety and gnawing hunger. And deep down, though you would never voice it aloud, a part of you silently whispers, wouldn't mind a small skirmish, just a little one, perhaps a minor border dispute. Because when swords break, you eat. Some jobs offer a definitive end, a clear finish line, a task completed followed by well-deserved rest, applause, or at least a warm bowl of stew. Blacksmithing is emphatically not one of those jobs. Your work is perpetually unfinished. Not today, not tomorrow, not even in your restless dreams. You manage to fix one thing, and invariably 3 more break. Patch a gate hinge, the wheel inexplicably falls off the cart. Finish a batch of nails? Someone immediately appears demanding 10 more, insisting they be longer this time, and also adding, "I can't possibly pay you until after harvest." You rise before the sun makes its appearance, and you finally go to sleep long after it has vanished behind the trees. And even then, your brain continues its relentless hammering. You dream of wheezing bellows showering sparks and that one persistent customer who still owes you a half-dozen eggs and a proper thank you. Even the seemingly quick jobs never are. A villager walks in holding a mangled rake. "It just needs a little fixing," they innocently state. But you know that translates to 2 grueling hours of reshaping, reheating, hammering, and politely nodding as they repeatedly ask, "Is it ready yet?" every 5 minutes. And just when you think you can finally sit down, perhaps enjoy a drink that isn't lukewarm and smoky, your apprentice comes running. "The farrier's ill, you need to shoe the horse," he announces. Of course you do, because you're the blacksmith, and in this locale, blacksmith is synonymous with everyone else's last resort. The forge demands your constant attention. The fire will not stoke itself. The tools will rust if neglected. Your anvil subtly shifts in the oppressive summer heat. Your bellows crack ominously in the brutal winter cold. Everything around you is either actively falling apart or constantly threatening to. Even holidays offer no respite from the work. Sunday is technically designated as a day of rest, unless, of course, someone's ox cart breaks down on the way to market. Then suddenly you're in your apron, half awake, fervently praying the priest doesn't happen to walk by while you're hammering on the Lord's Day. You don't maintain a to-do list. That would imply there's a point when all tasks will be crossed off. There isn't, because blacksmithing isn't merely a job. It's a relentless cycle. Work, fix, repeat, until your body ultimately gives out or your hammer finally breaks. And the most peculiar part? You secretly find a strange satisfaction in it. You'd assume that pounding hot iron all day would earn you at least 2 fundamental things: a satisfying meal and a solid night's sleep. Wrong. In the arduous life of a medieval blacksmith, food and rest are not guaranteed. They are luxuries, much like clean water or polite customers. You toil from sunup to sundown, burning calories at an astonishing rate, akin to a runaway horse. And what do you receive in return? A piece of coarse bread, a bowl of cold pottage that might contain yesterday's turnip, and perhaps, just perhaps, a small portion of salted pork if it happens to be a special day, which, predictably, it isn't. You eat standing up, one hand still clutching tongs, the other shielding your meager food from the forge's ever-present ash. Meals are rushed, conversations are reduced to grunts, and if someone knocks urgently on the door mid-bite because their latch is stuck, guess what? That stew you were about to enjoy instantly turns cold. You don't eat for pleasure, you eat solely for survival. Fuel in, hammer out. Now, let's discuss sleep, or the cruel parody of it. When you finally crawl into bed, your hands are throbbing relentlessly, your back feels as though it lost a brutal bar fight, and your ears are still ringing from a full day of iron symphonies. Your bed is a straw-stuffed sack that's either too lumpy, too flat, or teeming with mysterious crawling things. Your blanket is a scorched wool sheet that carries the faint aroma of forged smoke, stale ale, and profound regret. And just as your eyelids begin to close, your brain suddenly recalls that order you forgot to finish, or that hinge that cracked in an odd way, or the payment you still haven't received for that wagon wheel 3 weeks ago. Sleep becomes a perpetual negotiation. You lie awake, tossing, turning, meticulously calculating how long you can possibly delay repairs without someone aggressively banging on your door at dawn. And don't forget the inevitable midnight surprises. Someone's horse throws a shoe, a sudden storm rips a door off its hinges, or a noble's sword urgently requires sharpening before a hunt, because obviously you are not permitted to rest. You learn to subsist on scraps and fleeting moments, stolen bites, brief half-naps, and sheer, unyielding stubbornness. Because in your world, productivity always precedes nourishment, and deadlines consistently take precedence over peaceful slumber. Food and sleep aren't breaks from the job, they are merely forced intermissions between relentless hammer swings. You'll eat when you can, sleep when you're reluctantly allowed, and fervently hope the fire doesn't extinguish itself while you're dreaming. There was a time when your hands were soft, once, long ago, perhaps in early childhood. Now they are irrevocably ruined. Your fingers have physically transformed into tools themselves, stiff, swollen, cracked, and calloused to the point where they barely feel anything, except agonizingly when they ache. You cannot properly hold a quill, you can barely lace your own boots, but you can confidently grasp red-hot tongs with the casual assurance of someone who has been burned so frequently that pain has lost its original meaning. Every single joint in your hands audibly pops when you move. Your knuckles appear as though they've been repeatedly assaulted by a hammer. Your palms are a detailed map of blisters, old, new, layered like tree rings. Need to determine the current season? Simply check the blister count. More than 5? It's definitively summer. You've lost fingernails more than once. Some detached cleanly, others did not. You once crushed your thumb so severely it turned black for 2 weeks. You didn't cease working, you simply switched hands and grunted with more intensity than usual. Cuts are a constant reality. Sometimes it's a chipped edge, sometimes a file bites you. Sometimes the unyielding iron actively fights back. Every single week, something on your hands profusely leaks blood. You wrap it in a scrap of cloth, mutter a curse under your breath, and continue working. Worse still are the burns. Some are mild, serving as minor, persistent reminders that hot iron shows no mercy. Others are more severe, the kind that sizzle, bubble, and leave indelible scars that eloquently tell their own stories. You've branded yourself more times than a cattle farmer, and at this stage, you're not even angered by it. You've simply grown accustomed to it. Your grip strength is the sole physical attribute that has noticeably improved. You can effortlessly crush walnuts as if they owe you money. But dexterity, that has long since vanished. You frequently drop objects. Your fingers visibly shake when exposed to cold. You're merely 30 years old, yet you possess the hands of a 70-year-old knight who tragically lost 3 wars and now plays tavern dice for soup. But despite it all, these hands are what fundamentally keep you alive. They meticulously shape swords, dutifully fix hinges, and firmly hold the hammer that upholds your reputation. They constantly ache, but they unfailingly work. Because in this demanding life, it matters little how broken your body feels, as long as you can still swing. Let's be candid. You don't smell pleasant. In fact, you haven't smelled clean since you were a child of 5. The moment you officially became your father's apprentice, your personal fragrance permanently shifted towards unwashed ashtray mixed with burnt bacon and desperation. Welcome to Blacksmith life, where no matter how vigorously you scrub, you will perpetually smell like fire. The forge burns continuously all day, and so in essence do you. The pervasive smoke deeply permeates your clothes, your hair, and your skin. Your sweat no longer even smells like typical perspiration. It's more akin to smoked meat left out during a warm spring. You could in theory bathe, but baths are a rare luxury. Water is perpetually cold, and you're tirelessly working 6 days a week, covered in soot, grease, and coal dust before the sun has even fully risen. So what's the actual point? You'd be filthy again by breakfast. Your clothes offer no relief. You wear the same singed tunic and scorched leather apron every single day. They haven't been truly clean since the last festival, and even then, someone managed to spill ale on them before noon. Now they simply hang on your body like a hardened, protective layer of accumulated funk. You attempt perfume? Forget it. It dissipates within 10 minutes before the relentless forge devours it whole. Flowers wilt in your proximity. Bread goes stale with unnerving speed. Cats hiss when you pass by. And the most uncomfortable part? People definitely notice. You walk into the tavern and the crowd parts as if you were Moses parting the Red Sea. The innkeeper instinctively knows to seat you in the farthest corner, near a window if at all possible. Not out of courtesy, but for sheer survival. No one desires to share a bench with the human embodiment of a burnt fence post. Still, you accept it in stride. A little shame is preferable to going completely unnoticed. You are known. People remark, "That's the blacksmith," with a peculiar mix of respect and nasal discomfort. You may not be the most charming individual in town, but you are undeniably the most aromatic. Besides, smelling of fire indicates you've been diligently working. Smelling of iron signifies you've been skillfully crafting, and smelling of sweat-soaked leather dipped in soot and profound regret, well, that simply means you're a professional. You didn't choose this life. The forge chose you, through your father's calloused hands and the weighty iron expectations passed down like a rusty heirloom. And now, you are doing precisely the same. Your son doesn't play with wooden swords or run wild through the fields. He fetches coal, pumps the bellows, and steadies the tongs while sparks rain down, and you quietly instruct him, don't flinch. He's perhaps 7 years old, but he already carries the distinct scent of burnt metal and wet burlap. You feel a twinge of guilt, but only a slight one, because you're not being cruel. You're simply preparing him. This is the ancestral trade. This is survival. He watches you swing the hammer, and you observe the way he stares, wide-eyed, a mixture of awe and fear. You vividly recall that very look. It's the same one you used to give your own father, back when he seemed as formidable as a mountain. Now you understand. He wasn't made of stone, merely exhaustion and immense responsibility. You impart every bit of knowledge to the boy. How to accurately gauge heat by color, how to tap the metal instead of slamming it, how to listen to the subtle language of the iron. You shout sometimes more out of deeply ingrained habit than genuine anger. Hold it right. That's too cold. Don't cry, it's only a burn. You attempt to soften things when you can. A quiet story by the crackling fire, a piece of dried fruit when you can afford it. But tenderness doesn't last long in the relentless forge. There's simply too much work to be done. His hands will inevitably soon resemble yours. His back will ache long before his voice breaks. He'll learn to sleep through the incessant ringing in his ears and awaken before sunrise without needing to be told. He'll outgrow his shirt, but never the indelible burn marks. And when you finally begin to falter, your knees, your shoulders, your lungs, he will carry the hammer you can no longer lift. People might remark that it's unjust, that the cycle should finally cease. But this is how it has always been, a continuous lineage of soot, steel, and unwavering survival. You're not merely passing down a trade, you're transmitting a profound legacy, a forge that simply never cools. So yes, you prepare your son to endure it all again. Not because you are cruel, but because someone must perpetually keep the fire burning. You've spent a lifetime standing perilously close to fire, swinging heavy iron for countless hours, and breathing far too little clean air. It was never a question of if your body would eventually fail, only when. And now, it's undeniably happening. Your knees creak like ancient wooden doors in a storm. Your back stubbornly refuses to straighten. Your fingers, once strong enough to bend raw steel, now tremble noticeably when you attempt to lift a mere cup. The forge still roars its familiar symphony, but your arms no longer respond with the same power. The hammer feels heavier with each passing day, as if it recognizes that it's nearly time to permanently leave your grasp. You don't depart in a blaze of glory. There is no heroic finale, no poignant ballad commemorating your last swing. You simply inevitably slow down. You begin delegating tasks to your son. You spend more time seated, observing more, and for the very first time, you struggle to recall the precise answers to his questions. The villagers now bypass you and seek out your son. They still nod respectfully as they pass you, but their conversations are directed to your boy. He's the one with the freshly calloused hands now. The burns are raw and new on him. The deep ache of the craft has shifted to new, younger shoulders. And quietly you feel a profound sense of pride. You were never wealthy. You never owned land or books or fine clothes, but you were indispensable. You kept swords sharp, wheels turning, gates swinging, and farms functioning. The world rarely offered its thanks, but it undeniably moved forward because of your tireless efforts. You will likely not reach 50 years of age. Most blacksmiths do not. The accumulated damage is too great, lungs blackened from years of inhaling smoke, joints ground down like iron on stone, a heart worn out from constant heat and immense effort. But when you are gone, your work endures. Nails remain firmly in church doors, blades rest securely at noble hips, horses are properly shod and ready to ride. You leave behind no titles, only tools, scars, and a son who now carries your hammer. And that, in your world, is more than enough. They may enter you in a simple grave, no gold, no statue, just a name roughly carved in wood, and a forge that continues to burn brightly in your memory. But every resounding clang that echoes through the village long after you're gone, that is the unmistakable sound of you, still tirelessly working. You were never a knight. You didn't ride into battle with colorful banners flying or wear polished armor that gleamed in the sunlight, but you made that armor. You didn't cultivate the land, but you meticulously crafted the plows that carved it. You didn't bake the bread, but you painstakingly forged the oven doors. You didn't construct the formidable castle, but every single nail in its sturdy beams, every hinge on its heavy gates, they were all touched by your transformative fire. You were a blacksmith, and in the medieval world, that designation encompassed everything. While nobles endlessly argued and kings repeatedly changed crowns, you steadfastly stood by your forge, day in and day out, meticulously shaping the world, piece by painstaking piece. 1,000 seemingly small things. Rivets, hooks, braces, buckles, nothing that typically draws a cheering crowd, yet everything that fundamentally holds the entire world together. Your life was undeniably loud, but your enduring legacy is remarkably quiet. No one ever composed songs about your hammer, no bard ever praised your tongs, but every functional wheel, every unbroken sword, every barn door that swings smoothly instead of falling off its hinges, that was all you're doing. People walked past your forge and merely perceived smoke. They smelled sweat and soot and simply assumed that was the extent of it. But inside, deep inside, was a vibrant symphony of intense heat and unyielding steel, a continuous process of creation and profound endurance. You didn't just forge raw iron, you forged civilization itself, one horseshoe, one blade, one nail at a time. And now, long after your hands have ceased their labor, the fire continues to burn. Your son lifts your hammer, your grandson learns to endure the intense heat. Your name might eventually fade from collective memory, but the vital tools you built carry on, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation. You were never crowned, never formally honored, never widely celebrated. But without you, nothing truly moved. No carts rolled, no armies marched, no homes were securely fastened. You were the unseen foundation beneath the grand history books, the persistent ember glowing beneath the celebrated stories of kings. And that matters far more than anyone ever vocalized. Because in a world fundamentally built of wood, stone, and sheer willpower, you were the essential fire, the silent spark that transformed raw ore into tangible progress. You weren't merely part of the world, you were the very force that kept it turning. Long before alchemy became associated with secretive European laboratories and robed mystics whispering over bubbling flasks, it was something far more sacred and profoundly ancient. Its true origin lies not in medieval Europe, but in the shimmering heat of ancient Egypt, where transformation was not a mere trick of science but a divine principle intricately etched into every facet of life and death. The ancient Egyptians had a specific word for it, chemia, derived from chem, meaning black land. It referred to the dark, incredibly fertile soil left behind by the annual flooding of the Nile. But this was not just a poetic nickname for their geography. It held deep spiritual significance. To the Egyptians, black was the color of immense potential, of richness, of raw matter patiently waiting to be transformed. And so the very land of Egypt itself became a powerful metaphor for the inherent transformative power of nature. This is where the word alchemy, alchemia, would eventually be born. But alchemy in Egypt wasn't solely focused on turning base metals into glittering gold. That particular obsession emerged much later. For the ancient Egyptians, alchemy permeated every aspect of their existence. It was integral to the solemn ritual of mummification, where the body of the deceased was meticulously preserved, profoundly transfigured, and carefully prepared for eternity. It was present in the sacred temples, where skilled priests meticulously blended oils, herbs, and minerals into potent sacred elixirs. It was observed in the celestial stars, in the fertile soil, in the very act of baking bread and brewing beer. Transformation, they firmly believed, was the fundamental language of the gods. In fact, Egyptian alchemy was never purely physical. It was fundamentally spiritual at its core. To outwardly change something, you first had to inwardly understand it. This profound idea would echo through the centuries in alchemical texts across countless cultures. Some legends suggest that these early Egyptian alchemists were divinely guided by a celestial figure, Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, magic, and the moon. According to ancient lore, Thoth revealed the profound secrets of creation, transformation, and the soul's arduous journey beyond death. These secrets, it was said, were inscribed on a mystical object known as the Emerald Tablet. But before delving into that, we must acknowledge one fundamental truth. Alchemy began not as a greedy quest for gold, but as a sacred science of life. In Egypt, it represented the primal fire from which all others arose. And everything that followed, from ancient Persia to medieval Paris, would trace its fundamental roots back to this ancient, fertile land. If ancient Egypt served as the birthplace of alchemy, then Thoth was undeniably its divine midwife. In Egyptian mythology, Thoth wasn't merely a god. He was revered as the supreme deity of knowledge, magic, writing, time, and the very fundamental laws of the universe. Depicted with the head of an ibis and a moon disk crowning him, Thoth epitomized equilibrium. And in a world deeply obsessed with cosmic order and profound transformation, he was considered the sacred scribe of all hidden truths. According to pervasive myth, Thoth didn't just practice alchemy, he inherently embodied it. The Egyptians firmly believed he had authored thousands of sacred books brimming with divine wisdom. Most of these were never intended for mortal eyes, but one fragmented piece of his profound knowledge would irrevocably alter history: the mysterious Emerald Tablet. Whispers of the Emerald Tablet have reverberated through time like an ancient riddle etched into the very bones of civilization. Said to be inscribed on gleaming green crystal or a precious emerald stone, the tablet comprised a short poetic text, barely a dozen lines long. Yet those lines were believed to contain the ultimate key to transforming matter, spirit, and reality itself. It commences with a sentence that has captivated and haunted thinkers for centuries. That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. This deceptively simple line, known as the principle of correspondence, suggests that the microcosm and the macrocosm are perfect mirrors. What unfolds in the heavens is mirrored within the human soul. What changes within a laboratory echoes throughout the cosmos. The Emerald Tablet didn't provide explicit instructions for creating gold. It offered a comprehensive worldview. It declared that the world is not static. Everything can be refined, elevated, transmuted, not just led into gold, but ignorance into profound wisdom, chaos into perfect harmony, the mortal into the divine. The tablet also speaks of the one thing, the primordial source of all creation, and how it ascends from the earth and descends from the sky, carrying the immense power of all things in its wake. Many interpreters viewed this one thing as the fabled philosopher's stone, others as the soul, the ether, or even pure consciousness itself. But perhaps the greatest mystery wasn't the content of the tablet, but rather who possessed the capacity to truly comprehend it. You had to be more than a mere scholar. You had to be a devoted seeker. And it was this sacred riddle, divinely gifted by Thoth, that would courageously survive the inevitable fall of Egypt and pass like a precious torch across borders and through the ages, first to Persia, then across the entire world. As Egypt's golden age began to wane, alchemy did not simply vanish. It migrated, traveling along ancient trade routes, carried by diligent scribes, profound mystics, and formidable conquerors. It passed into the hands of another powerful ancient empire, Persia. But this was not merely a straightforward transfer of knowledge. In Persia, alchemy underwent its own profound transformation, one that seamlessly blended spiritual fire with deep philosophical insight. The very backbone of Persian alchemical thought was profoundly shaped by Zoroastrianism, recognized as one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions. At its very heart lay the compelling concept of duality, a constant cosmic battle between light and darkness, truth and falsehood, purity and corruption. Fire, considered the purest of all elements in Zoroastrian belief, wasn't merely a symbol, it was inherently sacred. It burned eternally in temples, representing divine wisdom, and that sacred fire would ultimately ignite the crucibles of early Persian alchemists. But while spiritual ideas burned brightly, it was a Greco-Egyptian mystic named Zosimos of Panopolis who gave alchemy its first truly articulate voice, one that continues to echo through history today. Living in Roman Egypt around the 3rd or 4th century CE, Zosimos was no ordinary philosopher. His voluminous writings seamlessly fused technical descriptions of furnaces, stills, and elixirs with strange visionary journeys. In his most famous dream, he vividly describes himself being dismembered, burned, and utterly transformed within an alchemical furnace. But rather than evoking horror, this vision is presented as divine. It symbolizes the spiritual death of the ego, the profound purification of the soul. Zosimos did not believe alchemy was merely about changing metals. He was convinced that the alchemists must themselves undergo a fundamental transformation. Just as base matter must be broken down and purified before becoming gold, the alchemist had to suffer, purify, and transcend their former self. In his own words, alchemy was a profound mystery of both spirit and matter alike. He introduced the groundbreaking idea of spiritual alchemy, a concept far ahead of his time. Zosimos's writings are replete with strange and evocative symbols: lions devouring serpents, men melting into colored vapors, divine beings emerging triumphantly from fire. These were not mere chemical notes. They were profound metaphors for the soul's arduous journey toward perfection. Zosimos was also among the first to emphasize that true knowledge could not be acquired through purchase or mere memorization. It had to be deeply earned. The path of the alchemist was an arduous journey of discipline, suffering, and ultimate revelation. His influence would ripple across centuries and continents. And although many of his texts were eventually lost or profoundly misunderstood, one truth was abundantly clear. Alchemy was no longer merely a proto-science. It had evolved into a sacred philosophy. As the embers of ancient knowledge flickered across the remnants of Egypt, Greece, and Persia, a new empire majestically rose. And with it, a glorious golden age of profound wisdom blossomed under the expansive banner of Islam. From the 8th to the 13th century, a vast intellectual renaissance began. While much of Europe seemingly descended into the period known as the Dark Ages, thriving cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba became vibrant sanctuaries for philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and crucially, alchemy. At the very heart of this intellectual revival stood a man whose name would become legendary, Jabir ibn Hayyan, renowned in the West as Geber. More than just a chemist, more than a mere philosopher, Jabir represented a powerful fusion of both. Often hailed as the father of chemistry, his contributions to alchemy were so profound that they fundamentally laid the groundwork for modern science itself. Working within the enlightened courts of the Abbasid Caliphate in the 8th century, Jabir approached alchemy not as a form of mysticism, but as a rigorously structured, empirically testable discipline. He introduced laboratory methods that are still recognizable and utilized today: distillation, crystallization, and sublimation. He ingeniously invented new instruments, meticulously refined acids, and authored over 100 texts, seamlessly blending deep philosophy with precise chemical experimentation. Yet he did not abandon the spiritual roots of the craft. Far from it. Jabir firmly believed that everything in the universe was composed of combinations of four fundamental elements: earth, air, fire, and water, and was imbued with spiritual qualities. His intricate system incorporated a complex blend of numerology, astrology, and symbolism. In his philosophical view, every transformation observed in the material world perfectly mirrored a deeper, inner transformation occurring within the human soul. Jabir also introduced the pivotal idea of balance, or mizan, as the ultimate key to unlocking alchemical processes. Just as the human body must maintain balance to remain healthy, so too must metals achieve perfect equilibrium to attain their ultimate perfection. Gold was not merely a metal. It was considered matter existing in a state of perfect equilibrium. And if this precise balance could be achieved through careful and deliberate processes, then even the basest metal could be profoundly elevated. His immense influence was not confined within Islamic borders. Over time, Jabir's groundbreaking texts were meticulously translated into Latin and widely circulated throughout medieval Europe, igniting a powerful wave of Western alchemists who would build upon his teachings, often without even realizing they were standing on the shoulders of a Persian genius. Through the pioneering work of Jabir ibn Hayyan, alchemy took its most decisive step forward. It was no longer simply sacred symbolism. It had become a rigorous method, a systematic approach, a true science, and yet it profoundly remained what it had always been, a comprehensive map to transformation, both material and divine. As the Islamic world meticulously preserved and expanded the knowledge of the ancients, much of Europe remained cloaked in prevailing superstition and spiritual rigidity. But knowledge possesses an inherent way of traveling, especially when it is simply too powerful to be contained. Slowly, piece by painstaking piece, alchemy gradually made its way westward, subtly conveyed through language, ink, and military conquest. The vital bridge between East and West was meticulously constructed in places like Alexandria, once home to the revered Great Library, and later thriving centers such as Toledo and Córdoba in Islamic Spain, also known as Al-Andalus. Here, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim scholars diligently worked side by side in rare moments of profound intellectual harmony. Translators tirelessly toiled over intricate Arabic manuscripts, carefully decoding the profound works of Jabir, Zosimos, and Aristotle, breathing forgotten ideas back into a receptive Europe. By the 12th century, Europe was intellectually starved for knowledge. The dramatic rediscovery of these ancient texts, particularly those on alchemy, was nothing short of a cultural detonation. But what arrived wasn't solely the practical science of chemistry. It was alchemy in its most complete form, a seamless fusion of spirit, matter, and profound meaning. Monasteries began clandestinely hiding strange manuscripts behind sacred scripture. Monks discreetly experimented with metals, not only to purify them physically, but to metaphorically purify themselves. And in hidden chambers and candle-lit studies, European minds began to obsess over one singular idea: transmutation. The compelling notion that base metals could be transformed into precious gold, and that the human soul could undergo a parallel transformation. One of the most influential texts to reach Europe was the Turba Philosophorum, or Assembly of the Philosophers, a mysterious dialogue among ancient sages discussing the deepest secrets of nature. Then came the Picatrix, a massive Arabic grimoire brimming with complex astrological and alchemical symbolism. These works didn't merely transmit recipes, they conveyed entire worldviews, and those worldviews planted potent seeds in curious minds. The Latin translations of these texts circulated quietly, often cleverly disguised as religious or philosophical treatises to avoid accusations of heresy. After all, alchemy posed a significant threat. It challenged the fixed hierarchical order of things. If lead could become gold, could a peasant truly become noble? Could man somehow become divine? The church watched with deep suspicion, but alchemy's allure proved too strong to suppress. It offered a hidden path to perfection, existing outside of established dogma, beyond conventional authority. By the late Middle Ages, Europe had fully embraced the alchemical torch. The flame that once burned brightly in Egypt, Persia, and Baghdad now flickered in castles, monasteries, and clandestine secret societies. Alchemy had successfully crossed the threshold, and it was poised to evolve once again. By the late Middle Ages, alchemy in Europe had transformed into something almost mythic. It was no longer solely an intellectual pursuit, it had become a profound, holy quest. And at the very heart of that quest lay one singular object, one transformative idea, one enduring obsession: the philosopher's stone. The stone was not merely a chemical substance. It was a profound mystery wrapped in allegory, meticulously hidden in symbols and deliberately cloaked in riddles. Said to possess the power to transmute base metals into gleaming gold and grant immortality through the elusive elixir of life, the philosopher's stone became the most intensely sought-after artifact in Western esoteric tradition. But to those who truly grasped the essence of alchemy, the stone was not simply physical, it was fundamentally spiritual. In ancient alchemical manuscripts, it was known by many names: lapis philosophorum, the red stone, the powder of projection. Some claimed it was a literal red crystalline substance. Others adamantly insisted it was a powerful metaphor for spiritual awakening. But all practitioners universally agreed it represented the key to ultimate transformation. Alchemists firmly believed the universe itself was a living organism, constantly striving toward a state of perfection. Metals, too, were considered alive, slowly growing and maturing within the womb of the earth. Lead was simply immature gold. And just as nature inherently evolved toward perfect balance, man could similarly evolve and achieve self-perfection. The philosopher's stone was seen as the accelerant of that profound evolution. European alchemists like Albertus Magnus, Roger Bacon, and later Paracelsus dedicated their entire lives to understanding the intricate processes of nature in relentless pursuit of this ultimate truth. They meticulously constructed furnaces, diligently studied astrology, collected rare and exotic minerals, and authored cryptic texts filled with serpents, suns, dragons, and kings, all serving as powerful metaphors for the complex stages of inner and outer transformation. The stone's creation was said to follow a precise path known as the magnum opus, or great work. It commenced with nigredo, the blackening, a symbolic stage of death, decay, and the breaking down of the ego. Then followed albedo, the whitening, representing purification. Next, citrinitis, the yellowing or illumination. And finally, rubedo, the reddening, symbolizing rebirth and the ultimate emergence of the stone. But why conceal this profound process in such elaborate metaphor? Because true transformation, alchemists believed, was not meant for the uninitiated. The stone would reveal its secrets only to those who were truly prepared, not just intellectually, but profoundly spiritually. To seek the stone was to seek perfection. And while many relentlessly searched for material gold, the wisest alchemists understood that the only thing truly worth perfecting was the human soul. As alchemy became more deeply entrenched in medieval Europe, it gradually began to recede into the shadows. What was once open dialogue in ancient temples and scholarly exchanges in royal courts now transformed into a hidden, clandestine practice. The reasons for this shift were multifaceted: intense religious scrutiny, pervasive political fear, and the simple fact that alchemy's language had evolved into a complex, secret code, decipherable only to the initiated. The Church, wielding enormous power, viewed alchemy with a mix of both promise and significant danger. While some Christian mystics embraced it, perceiving the transmutation of metals as a powerful mirror of Christ's resurrection, others vehemently condemned it. The audacious idea that man could manipulate nature or even achieve spiritual ascension outside of divine grace was deemed heretical. To avoid persecution, alchemists meticulously cloaked their teachings in intricate allegory and symbolism. Thus began an era where alchemy retreated underground, finding refuge in clandestine secret societies, coded manuscripts, and obscure symbols that only true insiders could interpret. The Rosicrucians, a mysterious brotherhood that first emerged in the 17th century, claimed to possess ancient alchemical wisdom passed down directly from Egypt and Arabia. Their manifestos spoke eloquently of spiritual enlightenment, divine harmony, and profound hidden sciences. Although no one could definitively prove their physical existence, their compelling ideas spread like wildfire, profoundly inspiring generations of dedicated seekers. Then there were the Freemasons, whose organizational roots trace back to medieval stone builders, but whose rituals echo deeply with pervasive alchemical philosophy, concepts of purification, transformation, and the pursuit of inner light. Whether or not they practiced alchemy in the literal sense, their symbolic language aligned perfectly with its inherent aims, the meticulous building of the perfect self. Alchemy also found refuge in various books of secrets, texts like the Mutus Liber, which contain no words at all, only a series of strange, symbolic images specifically intended to communicate the great work without uttering a single sentence. Other manuscripts were deliberately written in green language, a complex form of wordplay, puns, and poetic double meanings that cunningly concealed their deeper truth. The alchemist's life had become one of duality, outwardly a scholar, a physician, or a monk, seemingly quiet and obedient, inwardly a revolutionary, relentlessly chasing the divine through fire and metal, spirit and stone. The very secrecy that initially threatened alchemy ultimately preserved it. Like a hidden fire buried beneath layers of ash, it smoldered unseen, faithfully passed down from master to apprentice, generation to generation. And in these quiet shadows, alchemy continued its profound evolution, not just as an early science, but as a living philosophy, one that would soon confront its greatest challenge, the definitive birth of modern chemistry. By the 17th and 18th centuries, a quiet yet profound revolution was brewing, one that would both inherit and ultimately bury the mystical legacy of alchemy. The Age of Enlightenment had unequivocally arrived. The deep mysticism and rich metaphor that once cloaked alchemical thought were no longer welcomed in the rigorous halls of academia. In their place emerged a new, more precise language, empiricism, strict logic, and consistently repeatable results. Alchemy's direct successor had arrived. Its name was chemistry. This wasn't an abrupt, violent execution. It was a slow, methodical transformation. Many of the earliest pioneering chemists were, in fact, former alchemists. They simply shifted their primary focus. The ultimate goal was no longer spiritual perfection or the complex transmutation of souls, but rather measurable, tangible change. No more dragons and black suns, just precise beakers, accurate balances, and meticulous documentation. One of the final, decisive blows to traditional alchemy came with the work of Robert Boyle, often hailed as the father of modern chemistry. In his influential 1661 book, The Skeptical Chymist, Boyle cogently argued that matter was fundamentally composed of atoms and that chemical reactions could be fully explained without resorting to mystical forces. He didn't mock alchemy, but he systematically stripped it of its esoteric language and allegorical constructs. Boyle firmly believed in the alchemist's capacity for transformation, but insisted it must be explained through discernible natural laws, not obscure allegory. Soon after, Antoine Lavoisier would famously discover the crucial role of oxygen in combustion and definitively disprove the ancient theory of the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. The periodic table would subsequently follow, laboratories transformed into secular temples of empirical knowledge. Alchemy, with its hidden codes and sacred metaphors, was increasingly viewed as outdated, an intellectual embarrassment to real science. But here lies the inherent paradox. Chemistry owed its very existence to alchemy. The foundational tools, the experimental techniques, the very spirit of scientific curiosity, it all originated from the intense furnace of that ancient craft. Alchemy had traversed the initial, arduous path so that chemistry could swiftly advance. Still, the world was undeniably changing. Industrialization demanded concrete results, not cryptic riddles. Governments funded burgeoning laboratories, not secretive lodges. The elusive philosopher's stone was supplanted by the precision of the microscope, the ancient alembic by the efficient Bunsen burner. What was once sacred had become purely material. Yet not all was lost. In hidden corners and quiet minds, the spirit of alchemy still breathed. Not as a conventional science, but as an enduring symbol of profound transformation, of fundamental unity, and of the eternal, intricate dance between matter and spirit. And while the world predominantly turned to chemistry for answers, some continue to look to alchemy for deeper meaning. Because some fires never truly extinguish, they simply burn unseen beneath the surface. Alchemy may have vanished from the prestigious halls of academic science, but it never truly died. Instead, it transformed. just as it always taught that all things must. What began in the sacred tombs of Egypt was meticulously refined in the fire temples of Persia, and intricately encoded in the hidden texts of medieval Europe did not simply disappear. It profoundly evolved, branching into the distinct fields of chemistry, psychology, medicine, and even modern spirituality. Its outward material form was shed, but its inner profound message endured. In the 20th century, a new kind of alchemist emerged, one equipped not with a physical furnace, but with a notebook and a mind brimming with deep dreams. Carl Jung, the influential Swiss psychologist, rediscovered the hidden wisdom embedded within alchemy and breathed new life into it. He compellingly argued that the ancient alchemists were not merely transforming metals, they were unconsciously mapping the intricate terrain of the human psyche. The blackening phase, nigredo, Jung posited, represented depression. The whitening albedo symbolized profound insight. The reddening, rubedo, marked the birth of a unified self. The elusive philosopher's stone, Jung asserted, was the process of individuation, the profound journey of becoming truly whole. Alchemy, it turned out, had always been about something far greater than just gold. Today, we observe its subtle fingerprints everywhere. In contemporary self-help books advocating personal transformation, in captivating stories of heroes who bravely descend into darkness only to return profoundly reborn, and in the very language we commonly employ. Words like refine, distill, and purify are all direct echoes of the alchemist's ancient path. Even within the rigorous realm of modern science, the underlying spirit of alchemy quietly lingers. Chemists still transmute elements, albeit in nuclear reactors. Physicists speak of dark matter and unified fields with the same profound wonder alchemists once reserved for ether and quintessence. The relentless search for the fundamental building blocks of the universe continues unabated. Only the specific language used has evolved. But perhaps the true enduring legacy of alchemy lies in its unwavering insistence on wholeness. It never separated spirit from matter, nor science from profound mystery. It taught that the transformation of the outer world intrinsically begins with the profound transformation of the inner self, that behind every meticulous experiment lay a sacred overarching question: who are you becoming in the process? In a world increasingly driven by speed, by technology, by the cold precision of data, alchemy whispers an ancient, timeless truth, that to truly change anything, you must also be willing to profoundly change yourself. And so the alchemist's transformative fire still burns, not in physical crucibles, but deep within human hearts, patiently waiting, gently calling, endlessly transforming. Because alchemy was never merely a science, it was a profound mirror. At first glance, Cappadocia appears like a surreal painting, its surface dotted with towering stone chimneys and gracefully rippling ridges carved by relentless wind and the passage of time. Tourists marvel at the strange beauty visible above ground, but what most never fully grasp is that the true wonder lies profoundly beneath their feet. Deep under this unique Turkish landscape exists a forgotten world, an intricate labyrinth of subterranean cities stretching for many miles. These are not simple caves or makeshift shelters. They are entire complex urban complexes cleverly hidden underground, complete with meticulously carved residences, chapels, wells, extensive food storage areas, stables, and even dedicated schools. Some of these cities descend as far as 18 stories deep, housing thousands of people within the cool shadows of the earth. The most astonishing part? Many of these vast underground cities remained completely unknown until the mid-20th century. In 1963, a man undertaking simple renovations in his home in the town of Derinkuyu unexpectedly knocked down a wall in his basement. What he discovered behind it wasn't brick or dirt. It was a dark, seemingly endless tunnel. That tunnel led to another, then to a spacious chamber, and then to a spiraling staircase. He had inadvertently uncovered an ancient entrance to one of the largest underground cities in the entire world. It was as if an entire civilization had deliberately chosen to vanish beneath the ground, leaving behind no discernible sign of their presence except profound silence. But Derinkuyu was just one of many such hidden cities. Over the subsequent decades, archaeologists have identified hundreds of underground settlements throughout Cappadocia, with at least 40 major ones, often interconnected through narrow corridors and ingenious secret escape routes. These were not randomly dug burrows, they were meticulously planned and expertly engineered. Massive circular stone doors could be rolled into place to completely seal off passageways from the inside. These were not simple blocks. They were perfectly fitted, movable only from within, and nearly impossible to force open from the outside. Ventilation shafts intricately brought fresh air from the surface to the deepest levels. Wells tapped into underground aquifers, ensuring a constant supply of fresh water even during a prolonged siege. There was even a mission school, complete with dedicated study rooms, suggesting that these cities weren't merely about physical survival. They were about cultural continuity, teaching, worship, and preserving community. Why would anyone go to such extraordinary lengths to build something so elaborate beneath the earth? That question has profoundly haunted historians for many years. Theories abound. Were these cities primarily hiding spots from relentless invading armies? Were they monastic refuges, secret spiritual sanctuaries, or were they something far older, far stranger, built for reasons we can scarcely imagine? Whatever the underlying motivation, one thing is unequivocally clear. Cappadocia was not just a geological region. It was a profound refuge, a world cleverly concealed beneath a world, a place where thousands of people could completely disappear from the surface and live their entire lives underground. And the deeper you venture into these silent cities, the stranger and more complex the story becomes. To understand why people built such extensive cities beneath Cappadocia, we first need to comprehend the unique geology of the land itself, because Cappadocia is no ordinary terrain. Millions of years ago, a series of violent volcanic eruptions blanketed central Turkey under thick layers of ash. That ash subsequently hardened into a soft, porous rock known as tuff, a material light enough to be carved with basic tools, yet remarkably strong enough to retain its shape over many centuries. Rain and wind then meticulously sculpted it into bizarre formations, towering fairy chimneys, distinct conical towers, and mushroom-like spires. The entire region appeared as if it had been torn from a fantastical dream or a completely different planet. But ancient peoples didn't just marvel at the unique rock, they intelligently worked with it. Early settlers quickly realized that this distinctive volcanic stone was a profound gift. They could effortlessly carve out homes, chapels, storage rooms, and even entire complex living spaces without needing lumber or traditional bricks. And unlike surface dwellings, these subterranean stone chambers remained refreshingly cool in the scorching summers and comfortably warm during freezing winters. Above ground, they carved beautiful churches directly into cliff faces. But below ground? That's where the true architectural magic unfolded. It likely began with simple caves, small discreet hideaways to store food, to escape the oppressive heat, or to seek shelter from sudden storms. But over time, as external threats grew and communities expanded, those initial caves also grew. They gradually evolved into interconnected rooms, then multiple levels, and eventually vast, intricate networks. And once the meticulous digging commenced, it seemingly never stopped. Entire societies seemingly vanished beneath the soil, carving deeper and deeper, not haphazardly, but with deliberate, precise intention. Tunnels meticulously connected homes to kitchens, stables to wells, and individual rooms to communal chapels. They ingeniously created sophisticated ventilation shafts that extended to the surface, filtering fresh air through as many as 18 underground levels. They even excavated vertical staircases, wide enough to accommodate both people and livestock, yet strategically narrow enough to defend effectively. What's truly astonishing is the immense antiquity of some of these structures. While many underground cities were significantly expanded during the Byzantine era, some archaeologists believe that the original, deepest levels, especially in sites like Derinkuyu and Kaymaklı, could potentially date back to the Hittite Empire or even earlier, possibly around 2000 BCE. This unique land inherently invited transformation, and the people of Cappadocia responded by meticulously shaping it not with advanced machines, but with unwavering patience, profound vision, and an acute focus on survival. The earth was not just a mere foundation, it became a comprehensive shelter, an impregnable fortress, a second sky, only inverted and filled with profound secrets. But what precisely were they so diligently hiding from? That is the compelling question we delve into next. Beneath the quiet town of Derinkuyu, lies something truly extraordinary. A city not situated upon the earth, but deeply embedded beneath it. A sprawling city that no one even knew existed until 1963, when a local man, undertaking simple renovations in his home, inadvertently knocked down a wall and discovered a dark tunnel stretching beyond sight. That tunnel led to numerous chambers. These chambers in turn led to intricate corridors. Staircases spiraled relentlessly downward into the solid rock, leading from room to room, level to level, until eventually astonished explorers found themselves standing a remarkable 18 stories beneath the surface. They had uncovered Derinkuyu, the largest and deepest underground city ever discovered in Cappadocia, and quite possibly in the entire world. What archaeologists found was truly staggering. This was no temporary hideout or a mere emergency shelter. Derinkuyu was a fully functional living city, meticulously carved entirely out of volcanic stone. It contained residences, churches, communal kitchens, wine and oil presses, extensive storage rooms, schools, and even a dedicated baptismal chamber. It possessed the capacity to house an estimated 20,000 people, along with their livestock and essential food supplies. It was engineered with remarkable precision. Massive, circular rolling stone doors, expertly shaped like millstones, could be moved to completely seal off tunnels in the event of an attack. These were not simple blocks. They were perfectly fitted, could only be moved from the inside, and were nearly impossible to force open from the outside. Ventilation shafts snaked intricately upward through the solid rock, delivering fresh air to even the deepest levels. Wells provided access to underground aquifers, ensuring a constant supply of water without the need to surface, even during a prolonged siege. There was even a dedicated mission school, complete with study rooms, strongly suggesting that this city was not solely about physical survival. It was profoundly about continuity, preserving teaching, worship, and community itself. But here's what makes Derinkuyu so deeply mysterious. We don't definitively know who first constructed it or precisely why. Some believe it was primarily expanded by early Christians fleeing Roman or later Arab persecution. Others argue the foundational levels are far older, potentially dating back to the Phrygians or even the Hittites, thousands of years before the Christian era. Why undertake such extraordinary efforts to vanish underground? Was it to escape invading armies, as many believe? Or was the perceived threat entirely non-human? Derinkuyu holds no definitive inscriptions, no identifiable names, no clear chronological timeline, just rooms, tunnels, and an abundance of unanswered questions. And even today, much of it remains unexplored. Because the deeper you descend, the less it feels like a conventional city, and the more it feels like something else entirely. To construct downward is far more complex than building upward. There is no natural sunlight, no convenient scaffolding, no wide open skies, just solid stone and pervasive shadow. And yet, the ingenious architects of Cappadocia's underground cities didn't simply dig. They designed with remarkable intelligence and astonishing precision. They created spaces that could comfortably support thousands of lives for months, perhaps even years at a time. These cities were not chaotic tunnels hastily burrowed in panic. They were meticulously planned systems, layered like an onion, with each level serving a distinct and purposeful function. Living quarters were typically situated closer to the surface, allowing for quicker access to the outside world when danger had passed. Deeper levels housed communal kitchens, various workshops, extensive food storage areas, and livestock pens, all strategically placed to minimize the risk of contamination or the spread of fire throughout the city. One of the most ingenious features was the sophisticated ventilation system. Long vertical shafts were expertly carved through the solid rock to allow fresh air to circulate efficiently through as many as 18 underground levels. Some shafts descended over 50 meters deep, yet were so well placed that fresh air could reach even the lowest chambers without the need for fans or electricity, relying solely on gravity and brilliant design. Water supply was another crucial element for survival. The cities were strategically constructed around natural aquifers. Wells could be accessed from within, ensuring that even during a prolonged siege, residents would not need to emerge for water. In some cities, the well shafts were completely sealed off from the surface to prevent deliberate poisoning by attackers. There were also intricate communication tunnels, some leading to smaller satellite chambers, others connecting to nearby underground cities. In times of imminent danger, messages or people could be moved efficiently through the Earth itself. And the defense mechanisms were both elegantly simple and remarkably effective. Narrow corridors that forced invaders to approach single file, cleverly designed trapdoors that could be instantly dropped, and hidden escape routes leading into remote valleys or riverbeds. Most famously, the massive rolling stone doors, enormous round slabs that could be quickly rolled into place to seal off a passage in mere seconds. From the outside, they appeared as a seamless part of the wall. From the inside, they represented the ultimate last line of defense. Every single decision, every minute design detail, pointed to one undeniable truth. These cities were meticulously built for long-term survival, not for just days, not for weeks, but for sustained habitation under extreme, prolonged threat. Which naturally raises the compelling question, what kind of pervasive danger necessitated this extraordinary level of preparation? And was that danger ever truly eliminated? For centuries, scholars have pondered the same haunting question. Who were the people of Cappadocia so desperately hiding from? What kind of pervasive threat compelled entire populations to dig deep into the earth, not merely for temporary shelter, but to permanently live there? The most widely accepted theory points to recurring invasions. Central Anatolia served as a pivotal crossroads of numerous empires. From the powerful Assyrians to the formidable Persians, from the enduring Romans to the mighty Byzantines, the region was perpetually under threat. Later, relentless Arab raids during the early Islamic period would compel Christian communities to seek refuge deep underground. Derinkuyu and Kaymaklı may have become vital sanctuaries during these successive waves of violence, allowing people to literally disappear into the rock and patiently wait for the danger to subside. However, there's a significant problem with this singular theory. The immense depth, intricate complexity, and sheer scale of these underground cities suggest they were not constructed in a hasty rush. This was not a desperate last-minute act. It was a meticulously planned, long-term endeavor, requiring generations of digging, sophisticated engineering, and continuous refinement. Some of the deepest chambers and tunnels appear to predate Christianity entirely. So who built the initial layers? Some historians trace the earliest tunnels back to the Hittite Empire, nearly 4,000 years ago. Others suggest the Phrygians may have significantly expanded them. But beyond these educated guesses, the historical record falls silent. There are no definitive inscriptions, no identifiable carvings, no direct evidence telling us who first vanished beneath the surface or what terrifying force they were fleeing. That's where the more speculative theories emerge. Some suggest these subterranean cities were constructed not to escape other human beings, but something else entirely. Cataclysmic natural disasters, intense solar events, prolonged volcanic winters, or ancient, profound climatic catastrophes. The intricate layout of the cities, self-sufficient, cleverly hidden, and capable of being completely sealed off, could be interpreted as long-term survival bunkers, meticulously prepared for environmental collapse. Others look to more cosmic explanations. Ancient astronaut theorists propose that early civilizations may have built these cities to hide from entities they described as gods, powerful beings who descended from the sky and ruled with fearsome, overwhelming power. Could the underground cities have been a sophisticated shield against something not of this earth? One local legend speaks of colossal giants that once roamed the surface, terrifying people and driving them below ground. Others recount tales of fire from the heavens and relentless enemies who arrived with burning eyes. To the modern ear, these may sound like mere metaphors or memories distorted by centuries of oral tradition, but they undeniably hint at something terrifying enough to compel entire cultures to retreat into the very rock. While these ideas remain speculative, they profoundly reflect a central, enduring mystery. No matter how many layers archaeologists meticulously uncover, the core question remains fundamentally unanswered. Who were they so desperately hiding from, and did their efforts ultimately succeed? Because sometimes the deeper you dig, the darker and more unsettling the truth becomes. Imagine living not just for a day, but for months, perhaps even years, entirely underground. No sunlight, no open skies, just confining stone walls, flickering oil lamps, and the pervasive hush of life lived beneath the earth. This was the stark reality for thousands in Cappadocia during periods of intense threat. But what did daily life truly resemble inside these vast underground cities? Despite the inherent darkness, these subterranean spaces were far from lifeless. They were vibrant with routine, meticulously structured for communal survival. Families resided in multi-room compartments. Kitchens were strategically located on lower levels to manage smoke more efficiently, and food was cooked in clay ovens. The comforting scent of freshly baked bread likely mingled with the damp smell of stone and livestock. There were churches and chapels meticulously carved with crosses and altars, some even adorned with intricate frescoes. People didn't merely survive here, they prayed, worshipped, and practiced their cherished rituals. There were designated communal areas for meetings, dedicated schooling rooms for children, and long corridors that echoed softly with voices and footsteps. Lighting was provided by oil lamps, dozens of them strategically scattered along the passageways. Smoke was cleverly channeled through ingeniously designed shafts that also served as vital ventilation systems. Yet life here was undeniably challenging. Fresh air was limited, perpetual darkness was a constant companion, and silence, when it descended, was absolute. Water was drawn from deep wells intricately tunneled into underground aquifers. Grain was stored in sealed chambers to prevent spoilage. Wine presses and olive oil vats have been discovered meticulously carved directly into the rock, suggesting that even underground, life possessed flavor and ritual. The cities were explicitly built for long-term habitation. They weren't a last-ditch resort. They represented a meticulously prepared reality. Livestock, sheep, goats, chickens, were kept in dedicated pens, usually situated near the entrance levels for easier management and better ventilation. Their presence served a dual purpose, providing both food and warmth. Despite the confined spaces, the ancient builders profoundly understood the psychology of survival. Rooms were laid out in ways that granted families a sense of privacy, while shared spaces fostered a crucial sense of community. Life underground wasn't solely about hiding. It was fundamentally about preserving a way of life, an entire culture, and a people. It's a humbling thought. While wars raged violently above ground, entire civilizations quietly continued below, hidden in profound silence. People married, diligently taught their children, and mourned their dead, all within stone chambers softly illuminated by fire. To live underground was not to live in perpetual fear. It was to live with unwavering intention. Cappadocia's underground cities were not isolated pockets of refuge. They were integral parts of something far grander. Beneath the valleys and hills of this unique volcanic region lies a vast, intricate network of tunnels, chambers, and hidden passageways that appear to connect multiple cities together. Derinkuyu, Kaymaklı, Özkonak, and others may not have simply been separate settlements, but rather interconnected pieces of a unified subterranean civilization. Some of these tunnels extend for kilometers, weaving beneath the countryside like veins under skin. Narrow, winding, and often no wider than a single man's shoulders, they were likely used for secret movement, discreet escape routes, or even for transporting vital messages and supplies from one underground complex to another. Derinkuyu and Kaymaklı, two of the largest known cities, are widely believed to be linked by such a tunnel, stretching for nearly 9 kilometers. That's not merely impressive engineering. It's compelling evidence of coordinated planning on a scale rarely observed in ancient architecture. If true, it means multiple cities could effectively support one another in times of siege or crisis, functioning almost like an intricate underground federation. But these tunnels weren't solely for utility. They also incorporated sophisticated defensive features. Constructed with multiple bottlenecks, deceptive blind turns, and strategic choke points, they forced any pursuer to enter one at a time, making them exceptionally easy to trap or ambush. Many tunnels were cleverly rigged with trapdoors and massive stone corks that could be swiftly rolled into place to block intruders. Still, the full extent of these vast networks remains largely unknown. New passageways are still being accidentally discovered. In 2014, an even larger underground complex was unexpectedly uncovered beneath Nevşehir, potentially dwarfing even Derinkuyu in scale. Archaeologists believe it could contain dozens of levels, intricate aqueducts, numerous places of worship, and countless more tunnels yet to be fully mapped. What were these tunnels truly designed for? Were they simple escape routes, or did they form the essential infrastructure of a society meticulously built to live without ever being seen? The more we uncover, the more we realize Cappadocia's underground isn't just a scattered collection of homes and halls. It's a sophisticated system, meticulously planned, intricately connected, and profoundly hidden beneath our feet for thousands of years. And maybe, just maybe, there's still more waiting to be discovered. Entire cities deliberately buried not by the passage of time, but by intentional secrecy. Because in Cappadocia, the earth doesn't merely conceal secrets, it actively protects them. Despite decades of meticulous excavation and extensive study, Cappadocia's underground cities remain shrouded in profound mystery. The silent stone walls may conceal their origins, but the unanswered questions echo louder than ever. Not just the perplexing question of how they were built, but more importantly, why and when they were constructed. When conventional historical answers prove insufficient, myths and alternative theories readily rush in to fill the informational void. One of the most enduring questions revolves around the true age of these enigmatic cities. Mainstream archaeology largely links their significant expansion to the Byzantine period, when Christian communities sought refuge from various invading forces. But some researchers contend that the earliest tunnels and chambers are far more ancient, possibly dating back 4,000 years or even longer. If that proves to be true, what kind of pervasive threat existed so long ago that would compel entire populations to move underground? Here enter the various theories. Some propose these subterranean cities served as emergency shelters from cataclysmic natural disasters, massive floods, intense solar flares, prolonged volcanic winters, or ancient profound climatic catastrophes. The very layout of the cities, self-sufficient, cleverly hidden, and capable of being completely sealed off, could be interpreted as meticulously prepared, long-term survival bunkers designed for environmental collapse. Others lean towards cosmic explanations. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that early civilizations may have constructed these cities to hide from entities they described as gods, powerful beings who supposedly descended from the sky and ruled with fearsome, overwhelming power. Could the underground cities have been a sophisticated shield against something not of this earth? One local legend speaks of colossal giants that once roamed the surface, terrifying people and driving them below. Others recount tales of fire from the heavens and relentless enemies who arrived with burning eyes. To the modern ear, these narratives may sound like mere metaphors or memories distorted by centuries of oral tradition, but they undeniably hint at something terrifying enough to compel entire cultures to retreat into the very rock. There are also theories intricately tied to the profound symbolism of the earth itself. In some ancient traditions, descending into the ground represents a spiritual journey into the underworld, a metaphorical death and subsequent rebirth. Were these cities perhaps spiritual sanctuaries, places of profound ritual transformation? Or were they never truly abandoned, but deliberately forgotten? The truth is, no single theory adequately explains it all. The immense scale, the ancient age, the astonishing precision, it doesn't fully fit into our existing historical framework. And perhaps that's the most unsettling aspect of all. Because sometimes what lies hidden isn't just history, it's the very edge of something we were never meant to fully understand. Today, visitors to Cappadocia wander through dreamlike landscapes, over valleys meticulously carved by wind, past fairy chimneys that glow orange in the evening sun. Hot air balloons drift quietly overhead, painting a serene picture. But beneath their feet, the ground is hollow. Beneath the superficial beauty lies a world meticulously carved in darkness, one still seemingly holding its breath after thousands of years. The underground cities are now partially open to curious tourists. Visitors descend narrow stairwells, pass through low, arched tunnels, and stand in rooms where people once lived in profound silence, patiently waiting for danger to pass. And yet, only a fraction of these vast complexes has been uncovered. Some chambers remain perpetually sealed, some tunnels disappear into impenetrable shadow, and some doorways lead to nowhere, or so it appears. These are not just mere ruins. They are powerful testaments, undeniable proof that people will go to unimaginable lengths to survive, to meticulously protect their children, to faithfully preserve their cherished beliefs, and to simply vanish when the world above turns hostile. And in that profound act of vanishing, they left behind a unique kind of message, not explicitly written in language, but implicitly carved in enduring stone. We do not know their names, we do not know their individual stories, but we know this for certain. They were brilliant planners, skilled engineers, and profound visionaries. They meticulously created something that could withstand centuries of silence, something that might have been explicitly designed, never to be discovered. Cappadocia powerfully reminds us that history is not always presented on the surface. Sometimes the most profound truths are deliberately buried, hidden from relentless conquerors, hidden from the merely curious, hidden perhaps even from the relentless march of time itself. And what ultimately remains? Enduring mystery. Mystery in the perfect, precise fit of the massive rolling stone doors. Mystery in the ingenious air shafts that still draw cool wind from the deep recesses of the earth. Mystery in the countless miles of unexplored tunnels, still untouched, still dark, still holding their secrets. Perhaps the true original purpose of Cappadocia's underground world will never be fully known. Maybe it isn't meant to be. But as you walk through those silent chambers, with the immense weight of rock pressing from above and the pervasive silence closing in, you feel something ancient stirring within you. A powerful presence, a quiet whisper, not of fear, but of indomitable endurance. Because when the world above was consumed by chaos, the resilient people of Cappadocia looked downward and chose to survive in the dark, together. And the earth, it seems, has faithfully kept their secret well. To the ancient world, sleep was not merely an escape from harsh reality. It was an entryway into something far deeper and more meaningful. Dreams weren't simply dismissed as random thoughts or fleeting figments of imagination. They were taken profoundly seriously. In fact, they were considered direct messages, sometimes dire warnings, sometimes profound prophecies, and often explicit communications from powerful gods or benevolent spirits. For ancient civilizations, the boundary between the physical world and the spiritual realm wasn't sharp and unyielding. It was porous and permeable. And in sleep, that crucial boundary grew remarkably thin. The very act of dreaming was considered sacred, deeply mysterious, and often terrifying. It was during those quiet, vulnerable hours of the night that the divine could truly reach into the human mind. And what it whispered, or powerfully roared, could irrevocably shape the course of a king's pivotal decision, a priest's solemn ritual, or an entire city's fate. In almost every early culture, from the fertile river valleys of Mesopotamia to the grand temples of Egypt and the intellectual academies of Greece, dreams held an elevated, revered status. People firmly believed they were being visited not by mere fantasy, but by real, potent forces with real, tangible consequences. Dreams could foretell an impending war. They could chillingly reveal a hidden betrayal. They could offer profound healing, or they could unequivocally demand a sacrifice. Ignoring a powerful dream wasn't just perceived as foolish, it was considered extremely dangerous, risking divine wrath. The dreamer then was not merely a sleeper, they were a vital messenger, a vessel temporarily open to receive cosmic truths. And in some extraordinary cases, that dreamer became a revered prophet, directly chosen by the gods. Entire professions were dedicated solely to understanding and interpreting dreams. Priests, shamans, oracles, and seers all meticulously learned to read the complex symbols that emerged in the night. A snake in a dream could be a symbol of profound transformation or a deadly omen, depending on the specific context. A rising sun could promise victory or insidious deception, again depending on the precise circumstances. Each culture developed its own unique interpretative codes, but the fundamental belief remained universal. Dreams undeniably mattered. Even today, fragments of that ancient wisdom subtly linger. We speak of following our dreams or waking up to a realization. But in the ancient world, dreams weren't poetic expressions. They were literal maps, urgent warnings, sacred intelligence powerfully delivered while the conscious mind slept. This was the world before Freud, before REM cycles, before science even attempted to measure what the ancients already inherently feared and deeply revered. Because to them, the dream world was palpably real. and to walk through it was to walk intimately with gods. The first civilization to leave behind written records of dreams were the Sumerians, who flourished in Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. They did not perceive dreams as random, fleeting images. To them, dreams were direct, unfiltered transmissions from the divine realm, often complex, highly symbolic, and deeply consequential. Among the extensive ruins of their cities, archaeologists uncovered clay tablets meticulously etched with dream accounts, some intensely personal, others profoundly political. Dream interpretation was not a novelty, it was a structured, revered practice, diligently taught, rigorously studied, and highly respected. Sumerian kings maintained court dream interpreters, individuals specifically trained to decipher the intricate messages of the gods, whose interpretations could literally influence the fate of entire cities. One of the most famous examples of this ancient dream culture is found within the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the world's oldest surviving literary works. In it, both Gilgamesh and his trusted companion Enkidu experience vivid, highly symbolic dreams before embarking on their perilous journey to slay the formidable monster Humbaba. Gilgamesh dreams of intense celestial battles and catastrophically collapsing mountains, visions which his wise mother and the priests interpret as divine warnings and veiled prophecies. These dreams were not ignored, they were meticulously consulted as sacred guidance. The Sumerians firmly believed that there were two distinct categories of dreams, those purposefully sent by gods to offer assistance or instruction, and others that were empty, merely faint echoes of the day's waking thoughts. Determining which was which required the profound wisdom of a priest or diviner, individuals who possessed the ability to accurately read omens, symbols, and intricate patterns subtly hidden within the rich imagery of sleep. Temples often featured special chambers where priests or even kings would deliberately sleep in hopes of receiving direct divine visions. This ritual practice, later known in other cultures as incubation, may have originated with the Sumerians. These sacred dreams were revered as direct oracles, sometimes even more trusted than waking signs or portents. Dreams could also serve as potent political tools. A ruler who credibly claimed to receive divine dreams could significantly strengthen his legitimacy or boldly justify major decisions. "The gods told me in a dream" wasn't merely a spiritual claim, it was a powerful assertion of authority. In the Sumerian worldview, the entire universe was alive with profound meaning, and dreams served as its direct language. Every image, whether a violent storm, a ferocious lion, or a falling star, carried immense cosmic significance. And in a land where gods were believed to walk intimately among men, to dream was to actively listen. To ignore those dreams was to risk the overwhelming wrath of the heavens themselves. To the ancient Egyptians, dreams were not just messages, they were profound portals, pathways directly to the gods, fleeting glimpses into the afterlife, and sometimes explicit instructions for the living. In a culture utterly obsessed with achieving eternity, sleep wasn't merely a time for physical rest, it was a sacred rehearsal for death, and dreams were direct communications from the mysterious realm beyond. Egyptian texts clearly demonstrate that dreams were considered both deeply personal and powerfully prophetic. Like the Sumerians, Egyptians categorized dreams into two distinct kinds: truth dreams, which were genuinely sent by the gods or spirits to offer guidance, healing, or warnings, and false dreams, which were considered misleading or simply born of bodily imbalance. Temples dedicated to gods such as Serapis and Thoth were well known for practicing dream incubation. Worshippers would intentionally sleep within the sacred temple walls, fervently hoping to receive divine dreams. These temple dreams were often meticulously recorded, interpreted by skilled priests, and in some cases even carved into enduring stone. In certain instances, a person might receive not only visions but profound healing directly through their dreams. One of the most fascinating artifacts is the Ramesside Dream Book, dating to approximately 1300 BCE. This ancient papyrus scroll is essentially a comprehensive catalog of dream symbols and their corresponding meanings. It meticulously lists over 100 dreams, each precisely paired with an interpretation. For example, if a man dreamed of himself eating crocodile flesh, it was interpreted to mean he would gain significant power over his enemies. Another entry explicitly warns that dreaming of drinking warm beer foretells impending sorrow. These interpretations were taken with utmost seriousness. Pharaohs, military generals, and powerful priests all sought the counsel of experienced dream interpreters who functioned as crucial intermediaries between the dreamer and the divine realm. Egyptian mythology also intricately linked dreams to the Ka, or soul. During sleep, the Ka was believed to freely leave the body and travel to other realms. What it witnessed there subsequently returned as dreams. Sometimes these were comforting visions of loved ones long deceased or profound encounters with gods bearing vital messages. Occasionally, dreams were considered visits from malevolent spirits, and protective spells were meticulously recited to keep such ominous forces at bay. Even in tomb inscriptions, references to dreams appear. Kings described how gods appeared to them in the night, offering divine sanction for their rule or crucial guidance for their legacy. In the land of pyramids and gods, dreams were not mere illusions, they were profound revelations. And to dream was to step briefly into the eternal. In ancient Greece, dreams occupied a unique space where medicine, mythology, and philosophy profoundly intersected. To the Greeks, dreams were more than mere personal experiences. They were cosmic messages, often delivered by powerful gods, revered heroes, or even unsettling forces from the underworld. But unlike earlier civilizations, the Greeks also began to analytically question why we dream, thereby planting the very first seeds of psychological thought. The most sacred place for dream revelation in Greece was the Asclepion, a healing temple specifically dedicated to the god Asclepius, the divine physician. Pilgrims journeyed from across the Mediterranean to sleep inside these sacred sanctuaries in a process known as incubation. Before sleeping, they would meticulously purify themselves through fasting, ritual bathing, or offerings, all to prepare their bodies and souls to receive healing dreams. In these dreams, it was believed that Asclepius himself would appear, diagnosing their illness or prescribing a miraculous cure, sometimes even performing dream surgery. Temple priests, known as therapeutae, interpreted the dreams and applied treatments based on what the gods had revealed. This unique blend of medicine and mysticism was highly respected and often proved remarkably effective, or at least appeared to. The walls of Asclepions were often covered in inscriptions thanking the gods for miraculous recoveries. But dreams in Greece were not solely for healing. They also held significant political and prophetic importance. In Homer's epic poems, dreams originate directly from Zeus. In the Iliad, the god sends a deceptive dream to Agamemnon to influence crucial battle strategy. In the Odyssey, Penelope speaks of two distinct gates of dreams, one made of horn, from which true dreams emerge, and one of ivory, from which emanate lies and deceptions. Dream interpretation became a respected craft. Philosophers like Aristotle and Heraclitus pondered the fundamental nature of dreams, questioning whether they stemmed from divine origins or simply from the stirrings of the human soul. Meanwhile, Artemidorus of Daldis, a prolific 2nd century dream interpreter, authored the Oneirocritica, a comprehensive 5-book manual on how to meticulously decode dreams based on the dreamer's profession, gender, social status, and various symbolic elements. His seminal work was referenced for centuries. The Greeks believed that during sleep, the soul loosened its firm grip on the body, floating in a liminal state where it could glimpse deeper, hidden truths. Whether purportedly sent by gods or born from inner reflection, dreams were never considered meaningless to the Greeks. To dream was not merely to perceive visions, it was to momentarily touch the divine mind itself. In the ancient world, the realm of dreams was not merely a place of prophecy or healing, it was also a sacred space where the deceased could communicate. Many ancient civilizations firmly believed that dreams provided a rare and profound moment when the veil separating the living and the dead grew remarkably thin. To dream of a departed loved one was not perceived as a simple expression of grief or lingering memory. It was often believed that the very spirit of the deceased had truly returned, bearing urgent messages, vital warnings, or unresolved requests. These dream encounters were immensely powerful, deeply emotional, and profoundly significant. In Egypt, where the afterlife was absolutely central to their belief system, dreams were thought to offer a direct, potent link to the underworld. The soul, or Ka, was believed to travel freely during sleep, even venturing to visit the dead. If a deceased family member appeared in a dream, it could signify they were displeased, in need of offerings, or simply reaching out with guidance. Egyptians sometimes wrote letters to the dead, leaving them in tombs or shrines, hoping their requests would be answered in a dream. In Mesopotamia, dream encounters with the dead were treated with a mixture of reverence and extreme caution. The deceased were believed to retain significant power in the afterlife, and a dream visitation could be an unsettling sign that something was amiss, perhaps a neglected burial ritual or an unfulfilled vow. These dreams were often followed by meticulous ritual purification or propitiatory offerings to rectify the situation. The Greeks also took dreams involving the dead very seriously. In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus famously descends into the underworld and converses with the spirits of the fallen, a vision that powerfully mirrors what many believed could occur during sleep. The philosopher Heraclitus once remarked, "The waking have one world in common, but the sleeping turn aside each into a world of his own." That private, personal world was precisely where the dead could subtly slip through. Even beyond Europe and the Middle East, many cultures held strikingly similar views, that the deceased were not entirely gone, and that dreams served as their primary language. When the voice of a lost parent or child spoke clearly in the night, it wasn't merely poetic, it was palpably real. To the ancients, sleep was not a place to forget. It was where the past could still reach out, and sometimes demand to be remembered. To ancient civilizations, dreams weren't just simple messages. They were complex puzzles, richly laden with symbols, strange creatures, impossible events, and celestial signs. Dreams were firmly believed to carry a coded language directly from the divine realm. Interpreting them was by no means easy. It demanded extensive training, keen intuition, and often specific ritual practices. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece, professional dream interpreters operated almost like revered priests or shamans. They diligently studied vast collections of documented dream records, meticulously memorized the intricate meanings of symbols, and possessed the crucial knowledge to distinguish between a true dream and a meaningless one. Their interpretations could profoundly influence public policy, medical treatments, and even military strategies. Across various cultures, certain dream symbols recurred repeatedly, and their meanings were rarely literal. A snake might signify danger in one dream, yet profound transformation in another. Seeing fire could serve as a dire warning of impending destruction, or symbolize necessary purification. Flying might represent the soul breaking free of earthly burdens or an intense longing to escape something in waking life. In Egypt, comprehensive dream books meticulously outlined hundreds of these symbols. Dreaming of drowning might signal an impending emotional storm. Seeing oneself blind could foretell a spiritual awakening or a painful truth hidden in plain sight. These were not random guesses. They were integral parts of a vast ancient language of symbols, meticulously refined over countless generations. In Greece, Artemidorus of Daldis compiled the Oneirocritica, a monumental 5-volume manual dedicated to dream analysis. He powerfully emphasized that dream interpretation was not universal. Context was paramount. A farmer dreaming of a flood conveyed a very different meaning than a sailor dreaming the same. The Oneirocritica stands as one of the earliest known texts to suggest that personal experience profoundly shapes dream meaning, a remarkably modern idea for the 2nd century CE. Dream interpretation was also intricately linked to wider forms of divination. Dreams were perceived as one crucial thread in a complex web of omens, signs, and sacred messages. Dreamers might consult oracles, draw lots, or perform specific ritual offerings to clarify what they had witnessed in their sleep. Some even maintained detailed dream journals, inscribed on papyrus or clay, not just for personal insight but to share with their community. For ancient peoples, symbols were not merely subconscious images. They were profound keys, integral components of a divine language whispered to them in sleep. And understanding that intricate language meant unlocking the very will of the gods, comprehending the powerful forces of fate, and deciphering the deepest secrets of the soul. To the ancients, a dream was not merely a story. It was a profound message encoded, directly sent from the stars. Today, we often treat dreams as fleeting fragments, strange images quickly forgotten after we awaken, or at best, material for therapists and artists. But to the ancients, dreams were far more than mere mental noise. They were sacred, meticulously structured, and deeply respected. They offered vital guidance, profound healing, intimate connection with the deceased, and awe-inspiring glimpses of the divine. Dreams were an intrinsic part of the very fabric of life, seamlessly woven into medicine, religion, and even governmental affairs. So what caused this profound shift? As science and rationalism gained ascendancy, particularly in the post-Enlightenment West, dreams underwent a reclassification. No longer considered messages from the gods, they became neurologically explained byproducts, electrical impulses, fragmented memories, or mechanisms for emotional processing. The sacred interpretation became purely clinical. The rich symbolic meaning was reduced to mere chemical reactions. But even now, in moments of profound grief, significant life changes, or deep intuition, dreams continue to hold powerful sway. We still instinctively search them for meaning. A dream of a lost loved one can bring unexpected closure. A recurring nightmare can powerfully reflect underlying stress or a difficult truth we stubbornly refuse to confront in waking life. Modern psychology, beginning with the pioneering work of Freud and Jung, attempted to reclaim some of that ancient understanding, recognizing that dreams undeniably hold immense power, even if we no longer explicitly call it divine. What the ancients intuitively understood is that the dream world is not separate from waking life. It is a profound mirror, reflecting not only our deepest fears and desires, but something far larger, something eternal and cosmic. Whether it was a god speaking from the darkness, a crucial warning about tomorrow's impending storm, or the comforting voice of a parent long buried, dreams offered something society could not provide during waking hours, a profound conversation with the unknown. And perhaps that is precisely what we have lost, the humility and openness to listen to what sleep might be earnestly trying to tell us. Across the vast expanse of time and diverse civilizations, one unwavering belief remained constant. Dreams are not random. They are powerful doors. And the fundamental question isn't whether they're real, it's whether we are willing to bravely walk through them. In every ancient temple, every sacred scroll and clay tablet, we hear the same persistent whisper: pay attention, close your eyes, not to forget the world, but to truly understand it. Because in the profound silence of night, when the incessant noise of the waking world finally fades, we might just perceive what the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Greeks already knew, that dreams are not mere echoes of the mind, they are the very language of the soul.